Halala, halala sanbongela, halala, halala sanbongela we. Halala, halala sanbongela, halala, halala sanbongela. Halala, halala sanbongela, halala, halala sanbongela we.
I'm a Brazilian speech pathologist, a vocalist, and vocal coach. And I'm specifically, I live on the northeast of Brazil, where we call, my city became the City of Music in 2015 by UNESCO.
Dr. Ludumo Mangangane obtained a bachelor's degree in music history and choral technique from the University of Zululand. He continued his studies in music education and mathematics and has enjoyed a successful career in secondary music education. He is a renowned choral and orchestral conductor and author of the book, The National Anthem of South Africa, which chronicles the metamorphosis of the national anthem of the Republic of South Africa from two different compositions into one unified song. He is the recipient of numerous awards for his contribution in choral music and South African culture. He lives in Springs in the municipality of Ekurhuleni in the Republic of South Africa with his family.
I've been working in a medical university in the speech pathology department. I come from Chennai. Chennai is southern India in a state called Tamil Nadu. It's the capital city. Chennai is the capital city of Tamil Nadu. And Chennai is a cultural hub. And a lot of South Indian classical music happens in Chennai.
I can tell you that the relationship between voice and my culture is really strong. I can say that. And I also have to say that the Brazilian is a very talkative people. So it is something that's very important for our communication.
I think it spans different, I would say, tribes within South Africa. The usage of the voice depends on whether you are maybe Zulu, Sotho, Xhosa, or Pedi, or Tswana, because we've got a number of the African languages that are spoken in the country. So the type of music that is sung from time to time determines how the voice gets used by especially the leader of the singing group. Now, our culture has always, especially in terms of artistic performances, we would always be in the outside because we didn't have halls and all that. You never have music standing alone. It would be music and then some new movement or choreography. So these two complement each other.
I think voice and our culture are very interwoven. It's very, it's in what I would say is an integral part of every person's life, and they use voice for more than purposes of general communication in day-to-day life. And so singing becomes so vital, and every household, people think somebody gets into a music class, whether they like it or not. So it's part of the family tradition. Many of them just sing. I want to say that generally in India, there's so much of a spiritual component in everything. And voice is an integral aspect of the spiritual rituals people perform day to day. So everyone, does some aspect of spiritual reflection through voice.
For the Brazilian, definitely is gonna be that it's light, raw, the voice with this light roughness. You know, okay. People think that it's charm, it's beautiful. When we're talking about the carnival music that we call Axé music, the percussion is the bass. So we have a lot of vocal attack. The loudness is like that.
Luiz Pacheco Drummond, a força da sua presença está muito mais viva dentro de cada de nós.
Well, a beautiful voice will be the voice that is quite audible, and the singer is able to use it in a way that will be enticing to the listeners. It does not necessarily have to follow our Western choral technique, where the voice has to be trained. Here, the voice is not necessarily trained. The person sings in his or her natural way, the way he or she perceives how the song has got to be done. And maybe I would say, because of we have a word in isiZulu to describe a person who does something well. In Zulu, we say igagu. It's I-G-A-G-U. Igagu. Now that says that person can do something very, very well to a point that people will appreciate what that person does. So even during weddings, for example, you find that the bride will bring a group, that is a singing group from her family and village, and then the groom will also bring his group. And these two groups at some point will compete during the wedding. And then each of the groups has got a leader. The leader either makes sure that songs or the group doesn't stop singing, or the leader himself or herself starts the songs. The people who will be around, who are not part of these two groups, will be listening to this competition going on for the whole day, for that matter. They will show their appreciation of either the best dancer within the group or the best singer. And they'll come through with little gifts to give to that person that they feel is the best singer or best dancer in the group. But the main thing is that person entertaining enough? And is that person able to bring us in? Because some of our songs are community songs, and we don't have to go to a rehearsal to learn them. We hear this group singing because there are repetitions going on. So those of us in the outside audience, if we put it that way, are able to pick up the lines, and then they start joining. If it's easy dance movements, then they'll join as well. So that all that adds to the entertainment part for the people who came in as just onlookers, who end up being part of maybe the singing. Because as I said earlier on, these two groups, if it's a wedding, they'll compete for a long time.
Voice is linked so much to spiritually and to artistic uses in every household here. So whether there is formal training or mastery of use of voice or not, but they use voice for varied purposes. So for a child, I would think maybe the lullaby the mother does or the grandmother sings, any sort of Indian tales are usually narrated by the grannies, and storytelling, voice is used to attract the child, to give them values, morals, and so many things, and so voice in that sense. So the beauty is maybe the granny's voice is the first beauty. So beauty is so relative, and I think it keeps on changing. And generally, I would think any voice which is more perceived to be light and respectful is more considered as beautiful here. So I think, again, the voice reflects a tone of humbleness. A person evolves and trains culturally and reflects a particular genre of singing, then there is some set expectations there. In that sense, maybe we can think the Carnatic singing voice is usually something which is more low-pitched, open, and loud and emphatic. So that is considered as beautiful in Carnatic singing. In the Carnatic, we use a word called Khatram. Khatram is power emphasis, and loud. The Hindustani is slightly different, where they think about the melody there, and it's more light and pleasant in a way. It is not very loud necessarily. So and many of the light music, the cinema sort of Indian cinema singing, has a blend of these two.
Luiz Pacheco Drummond, a força da sua presença está muito mais viva dentro de cada de nós.
Terrible. I can say, as I told you, first, for the Brazilian, we think that the slight dysphonia is beautiful, but when they see there is something severe and they can communicate it, oh, they got disparate, completely disparate. So the voice is definitely the tool of communication. It is something that is important for our culture. So it is something that really, how can I say, can affect the quality of their lives, definitely.
Depending on what that person uses the voice for, it would actually be very, I would say, stressful. I've had in my choirs, for example, I've had there's a lady, she's with us in our church. She was a nice alto or mezzo, but I don't know what happened to her voice, and she can talk, but if you ask her to come and sing, she tells you that, sorry, I'm no longer able to do that. My voice just got so strained and all that, and I only have this little part in my vocal cords which allows me to speak, and that's it. And she's the second one. There was another one in the adult choir who also got her voice, she became hoarse. And I think she went to a doctor and all that, but it never came back, and that was it. So once, if you're a person whose life is in singing, then once that happens, it just simply breaks you, and you move away even from choir singing. We had another elderly man, he's passed on now. His voice was so hoarse, and I was told, where before he joined us, he came from Soweto, which is near Johannesburg. He also was part of a choir. And as to what happened to him, his voice was so hoarse. In his case, even when he spoke, the voice was hoarse. But there are some people who've got, I would say, a strong will. In spite of his hoarseness, whenever there were discussions and all that, he would raise his hand and want to go and talk and have his point put across, whatever. So you had to strain to listen to him and to hear him properly and all that. So there are people who simply feel, let me just take the back seat. And there are others who say, I am going to go on in spite of my impediment. I still continue because the little bit that they can hear are used.
To a great extent, I think in India, it's a very inclusive society. So if somebody lost voice, there are ways in which the family supports and, tries to help and reason out how this can be overcome and how things can. So in that sense, it's pretty inclusive. At the same, contrary to that, while there is inclusivity, but there may not be adequate sensitivity to somebody's personal loss. We used to go to rural places, the tribal villages. I knocked in one of the doors there, and I asked them the names of all children. So when I asked them for the name, and so one person was saying everybody's name, and one person's name was Muga. Okay, Muga. Muga in Kannada means somebody who's unable to speak. So I said, Muga can't be a name. What is his name? He said, no, he's Muga. So that is the sense of insensitiveness there, but there is an inclusivity that he is having a problem and he is named by this problem. And so there is support. Okay, so the plus there is somebody to support him. He can't speak, so everybody speaks for him or provides it. But there's insensitiveness that he cannot lead independently. That sort of a feeling is it. So it was quite an an uneven divide, I would think, in sense of inclusiveness, but at the same time insensitively inclusive. That was in the rural communities. While in the urban, I think the divide is different. So there is always more sensitiveness towards somebody's difficulties there. So that would be like how I would think our culture's responsiveness to somebody who have had some problems in their voice.
That we have to consider, because here in Brazil, for example, and I can say the whole country, the majority, people usually think that it's charm to have a slight dysphonia. It's something that's charm, something that people say, oh, it's beautiful. So although we have this strong connection with our voice, with music, with all kind of cultural manifestation, I can say that there's some kind of quality of voice that for us, speech pathologist would be something like, oh, we need some treatment, we need to fix that. But for the majority of the population, no. We are very musical place, we are very musical country. We can say that the singers and the voice professional also help us to promote these kind of things, because usually they always have the speech pathologist and vocalist with them. Here we have a carnival that is considered the biggest carnival of the world. And the singers in my city, they sing something around 6 hours to 11 hours straight for 7 days.
Every school had a school choir. So we managed, therefore, to be able to find our voices as to whether am I a tenor, am I a light baritone, am I a bass, or whatever the case may be. Even in the cases where the conductors, because most of our school choir conductors were not taught music. They just had the interest, and maybe when they were training as teachers, they just joined the college choir, and then they got some bit of training there, and then they were able to listen to say, okay, if I sound like a bass or a tenor, whatever the case may be. In my case, I did not. I know that the tradition is, if you're going to form a choir, a choral choir, you must audition people who want to come and sing. Now, I only did that in my whole life. I only did that once. Well, when I was still at high school, I would, after having formed the school choirs, I would then listen to good voices and then invite them to my choir. But then they would also invite their friends.
The Brazilian speech pathologists and vocologists, they are really engaged on this field. We love to make research and show the world that we are engaged in the science. And we need to show the world that the voice is important and that we need to take care of that. And there are a lot of tools that we can deal with that. So I think that the Brazilian speech pathologists that are vocologists or vocal coach, they are really, really engaged.
People who have grown up in our culture, because it's just that now things are no longer what they used to be. As I said, that every school had a choir. So that is why then the tradition grew and everybody would then be able to harmonize. We do not need to have an instrument to harmonize. It's fine to have an instrument because it does help us to keep in pitch, especially in various other delicate songs and all that. But generally, if somebody can walk into a room and sing a song that is well known, then everybody will just join and join in various voices. So our tradition, therefore, can give to the world that ability.
So I want to take two old ancient languages in India, the Sanskrit and Tamil. Okay. Let me start with Sanskrit. So in Sanskrit, one of the oldest book which is available to many of us, it basically gives the mandates of how an art form is done and how art form was linked to day-to-day life and how art form was used to civilize mankind and how it became an integral part of their life. So it is about drama, music, and any written form of artistry. So in that Bharata's Natya Shastra, there is a very specific mention about the way voice is developed, how the voice is conducted on stage, and how the voice is conducted otherwise in real life. A parallel around the same time, maybe what I see in literature is around to 2nd century BC. It's where this, so the oldest Tamil literature which is available to us is Tolkappiyam. Okay, so there also, there are at least 3 chapters which they have basically talked about the anatomy and physiology of voice and how the voice is used by a commoner and how that is being used for literary work. So when you recite a poetry, when you read a prose, when you are trying to teach drama, so how you have to use your voice, how do you stress, how do you lay emphasis, how do you, how do you maintain the rhythm? And so all these things are interconnected. These are aspects of speech, which we may think as speech, but they're interconnected on the voice use in all of these aspects. So that sense also, I think, from a very long time, Indian culture possibly has contributed to understanding of the voice. Interestingly, I also find that many of these do not say that this is the invention or this is the discovery, but they say it is a collective experience passed on over time. And that's the reason why you possibly feel what was written 5,000 years back is still, we are reflecting today and we think we are still reliving those things. So it is not an invention, but it is a collective experience which has been transformed, and it reflects in that sense of each one of us. When we read, we think, well, that's true for us too. Another important aspect which comes when people think of India is yoga, and voice is again linked with yoga. And so there are nada yoga, they say. Okay, so that sort of sound linked with yoga exercises and means to provide and stimulate the vital energy and to live comfortably, balance the ecosystem inside the body and with the exterior. So in that sense, I think India has a huge contribution to understanding of voice and its science.
Halala, halala sanbongela, halala, halala sanbongela we. Halala, halala sanbongela, halala, halala sanbongela. Halala, halala sanbongela, halala, halala sanbongela we. mahle we. Sanbona mazulu, sanbona mazulu amahle, sanbona mazulu amahle we.